Hi, everybody. Welcome to Sports Betting Bros. Dave Bontempo with my buddy Pete Amato. Glad to talk to you again. All of you followed us with Y equals Y and all the things we've been doing since then. We've got a new idea here, Pete, because over the sports betting realm, we've been inundated with show after show after show about pick this, pick this, pick this. But basically, it's really about finding your edge.
Yeah, I agree. It's some people use the algorithm, some people use the data, some people say they go with their gut, their experience, but there's many different ways you can make money in sports betting and also have fun, and to each their own. Everybody has their different edge. Some people like to use the numbers. Some people don't even watch the games and they just use the data. Some people have to watch every game that they're betting on and they use live betting and they only do in-game live betting. Some people only go with futures. So yeah, it's all about finding your edge, whether it may be using the data or just being a sports fan and talking it out with the guys.
I think there's a combination of things. Like when you just look at the Yankees and the Dodgers and that epic collapse by the Yankees last night. By the way, 8-227 is the record of teams who trail in a World Series by 5 runs and win. So there's no way you would have expected that. And there's no piece of data that would have told you that Aaron Judge is going to drop that fly ball in the fifth inning, a routine fly to open the gates. But it does open up something else, Pete. If you are watching that game, maybe at that point with Aaron Judge, you get a hunch that at least you can play, if not the money line, then the Dodgers plus 3.5 or plus 4 runs when they were trailing 5-0. How about some of the hunches and in-game ideas that come to people?
Yeah, for sure. Especially if you're a fan of a team, sometimes you can feel that dread. As a Philly sports fan, we felt that dread a lot. Where the Phillies might be winning by one, like they were in the playoffs this year. But as a fan, you know this team, and you know kind of that negative feeling of this just doesn't feel right. Also, the unpredictable factors. Sports events can be influenced by variables that data may not account for, like player injuries, weather. Um, Betting lines can change based on public perception. So that's not really anything with the data. The data might be creating that, but you might not be getting a good line on something just because of public perception. A lot of that has to do with stuff like the Yankees, LA Lakers. People tend to bet on those teams, even though they might not deserve those odds. And it could work in your advantage as well if you're betting the other side. Also, understanding the sport and applying personal insights can complement the data. So I think all that together, including being a fan of the sport and knowing the sport, knowing the teams, is a big deal.
Very important, like knowing when a bullpen is starting to get taxed, knowing when a starting pitcher is getting near the edge of his effective range, and
Absolutely.
when you can feel the game changing. And that goes back to the research. Well, we are going to help you and talk to you in this show about finding your edge, because that is what gives you the advantage over the games, over the handicappers, or just makes you enjoy it more and possibly profit a little bit more. In our next segment, what sports does that apply to most? It depends upon who you are. Sports betting bros, Dave Bontempo and Pete Amato. Well, we talk about, Pete, honing yourself in and giving yourself the best edge. And that really comes down to understanding a certain sports. So for you, what are the best sports to wager on that you make money on?
So when I looked at this, I was thinking about like you want to bet on something that is the most predictable. Obviously, that starts with when you whether you bet on favorites or underdogs. And I looked at some I did some research and found pretty interesting some research. Ultimately, for me, it comes down to the most opportunities and the most predictability, and that comes down to college basketball. I also asked a bunch of my other sports betting friends and people in the industry, and most of them agreed college basketball. 25 to 30% regular season games in college basketball can be classified as upsets, especially when considering matchups between ranked and unranked teams. There's a high game volume, offers ample betting opportunities, and And then you also have March's tournament, which creates unique betting options, which isn't the norm, where sports books kind of give edges and give odds boosts and stuff like that, where you can take advantage of. Also, a couple of guys I talked with that did like college basketball, they had one of them said he focuses on small schools for better odds, as they often provide greater value than the high profile games. And another guy said Wednesdays and Saturdays actually are prime days to target small conference games, because he feels a lot of sports books overlook the value of those games, and a lot of bettors overlook the value. And if you kind of sift through those big games and kind of move them out of the way and look at and try to find those small games, you might find some real good value in some of those games. So yeah, college basketball would definitely be up there on the as my favorite betting opportunity as far as predictability and money made. I got some more interesting numbers as far as MLB. Favorites in MLB games win roughly 57 to 60% of the time. So, which is kind of skewed a little bit because a lot of these teams play these 3-game series. So upsets are going to happen. So it was kind of a predictable percentage there. The NFL upset rate is close to 35%. The NHL upset rate is close to 40%. And when you're thinking about UFC and boxing, underdogs win about 35% of the time, and boxing is 25 to 30% of the time.
Wow, and that's
Yeah,
some pretty good numbers, and those
yeah,
upset numbers are very, very significant.
yeah,
MLB, the series bet is great. College basketball, it starts in November, so
yeah,
we're going to run right into that. I find that the sports where you get your edge are the ones where you watch and pay attention. So there can be a big spectrum.
yeah,
So what does that mean? You're watching an NFL game. Watch the first series. Has the defense
yeah,
shown up? Is there timing between the offensive players? How does the team look? How is that spark? We're seeing a lot more in-game betting, Pete. We're seeing about 50% of the wagers are now in-game. Bettors are laying back a little bit at the start and taking a look to see which team showed up today. I want to keep
exactly.
a little bit of powder in my gun because I want to shoot it later. I want to see
Yeah,
if I'm good today. If the Eagles are the team that I wagered on, well, how are they? And by the way, here's my prediction: they're going to end something this week. The Eagles have not scored a point in the first quarter of a
okay.
game this year. That ends this week.
Let's hope
That's my
so.
call. I look for that bet. I'm going to make that bet. But I find you'll get teams' tendencies. You'll see who the quarterback likes to throw to in the fourth quarter. You'll see if the team can prevent themselves from having the penalties that
Yeah,
will hamper their drives. And the bad teams will always get those holding penalties, those procedure penalties, and drive themselves back off of it. But where you find your edge is where you do your work. And that's the thought for this week on what sports are best. The sports that are best are the ones that you invest in. It's the Sports Betting Bros, Dave Bontempo and Pete Amato. Please remember, hit like and subscribe to be notified about future videos.
yeah, and talking about the edge, I know one of your favorite things to bet on is horse racing, and you have the Breeders' Cup coming up this weekend. Do you have any thoughts on the Breeders' Cup coming up?
Yeah, it is a betting smorgasbord, Pete. And I think that people have to weigh in and budget themselves very well because there is value in many of the races. But can you really bet all 14 really heavily? There are 5 on the Friday, and the 9 that I'm looking at on Saturday are very good. First of all, on Breeders' Cup Day, here's something is a good general tip for everybody. Pay attention most to the win and place lines. We're all tempted by these multiple exotics payouts, but on Breeders' Cup Day, just like Kentucky Derby and all Triple Crown days, the payouts on the win line are very good because there are multiple betting options in the field. Somebody's going to be overlooked, and you'll usually get about $1 or so more on your price for the win bet, and especially about the place bet. Now, how important is $1? If you wager $100 on place and you get $1 more than normal, you've made $100 more on that bet just by having the right betting pool. So that's the first big thing, is to really look at the win in the place line, because they pay well on Breeders' Cup Day. Now, a couple things. Find the value, demand the value. I don't know if there's the correct value I'd like to see in the Breeders' Cup Classic. Fierceness, one of the favorites, is 3-1. That's not too much for a big field. And City of Troy has run on the turf but hasn't proven himself on the dirt. Why is this horse 5-2? Why do you want to invest in odds that small? I think there are a couple things to watch. The race involving Torpedo Anna, which is the distaff, that's the best filly in the world right now. And Torpedo Anna may not get a good price, but may get the best of the speed duel. Maybe hook Torpedo Anna up in an exacta. And then the Breeders' Cup Dirt Mile is the one where I think the best values of the day are going to be. We've got Seize the Gray, who won the Preakness and the Pennsylvania Derby, going against Muth and going against Skippy Longstocking, horses that were very good last year. So now you got the horses that were very good last year getting money, and this is the hot horse now. So you take those factors and put them in there. I am very much aligned with those horses. I'll be playing them. And then you look at a big trainer like Charles Appleby. He's 10 for 20 in the Breeders' Cup. These are the turf races. The turf races have traditionally belonged to the European horses, and horses can come off the pace. That is a general overview of a major spot. Find your edge. Breeders' Cup Day, they all show up. Find your edge, stay within your budget, and hopefully you bring one home. Sports betting bros. Well, we sure had some wild NFL games last week, Pete. One of my favorites of all time, how the Washington Commanders toppled the Chicago Bears on the last play. Daniels throwing the ball from about his 31, it gets tipped, and the Commanders get the tip in the end zone. What a phenomenal finish to that game. And both teams are having a storybook season, but the Commanders maybe more so.
Yeah, the Commanders look like the best team in the NFC East right now. I mean, I know the Eagles just had a great game so before last week, but they have a lot of young, hungry guys in that team, and they're actually making a splash in the league. Especially as an Eagles fan, you weren't worried about the Commanders. It's always the Cowboys. The Giants really weren't a worry either, but the Commanders have come out of nowhere. They have a lot of young, hungry guys in the team that are given a chance to start now, and they're making the best of it.
And if you do like the Commanders and you agree with Pete, talking about the edge, the Commanders are not the favorite in the NFC East, even though they're in first place. The Eagles down to -135, -125 on some books. So the prevailing wisdom is that the Eagles will overtake them. If you feel differently, there is value on the Commanders. And I can't stress enough, whatever division you like, Pete, that these things change every week. And the futures bets to make on division champions is excellent value, at least for about half the divisions at this time of the year.
Yeah, I agree. If you want to do futures, it probably now's the time, because you're going to get the best lines. You're going to get the best numbers, because things are about to flip. Coming up here, we're almost the halfway point of the season, and the numbers are going to flip. So if you have a feeling about a team, now's the time to do it, because when the numbers flip, you might get a +200 to a +800, or vice versa.
We've got a rematch here this week, and we're going to launch Pete's picks with this and your Commanders. When the Commanders and the Giants met in week 2, the Giants had lost their field goal kicker and had buried them because the Commanders got 7 field goals and they won. So now the rematch. It's at MetLife Stadium. Commanders giving the Giants 3.5. The Giants have a field goal kicker. What do you make of that game?
This is one of my picks for the week. And I like this game a lot, and I like the Commanders giving 3.5. They're flying high right now at 6-2. And we thought it was a setback last week, and now they have even more incredible momentum with that crazy win last week. And it's just another week for Jaden Daniels to heal a little bit, and he's going to be becoming more consistent as he's getting healthy and turning back to his normal self, being healthy. You can tell the difference between a Jaden Daniels that's hurt and a Jaden Daniels that's healthy. Also, Giants are on a 3-game losing streak where they have scored a grand total of 28 points in this 3-game losing streak, which is pretty dreadful. Daniel Jones hasn't thrown a single touchdown pass in the last 3 games. And for the year, he only has 1 more touchdown than interceptions, which is 6-5.
They did a stat on him a couple of weeks ago, and talking about either throwing or running a touchdown in MetLife Stadium, which is kind of a quirky stat, but they're closing in on 700 days now since he threw a touchdown pass or ran for one in MetLife Stadium. Giants are not as bad as their results indicate, but for some reason at home, they can't get it together. Now, a team that got off the deck last week, the Cleveland Browns. Now, consider this. Before they played the Ravens, the Browns were the only team in the NFL that did not have 20 points in 1 week. They got 23 points in 1 half against one of the best teams in the NFL. There's something different about that team, Pete, since Deshaun Watson was lost for the year. I guess it's kind of a cleansing for them, huh?
Oh, for sure. I think everybody in that building, every fan in there, whether they want to admit it or not, they realized that this Watson experiment wasn't working. And once Jameis Winston came in, he sparked the offense. The guys seemed to be playing harder for him. There's a lot less tension in the locker room, probably. And Jameis Winston has come in and a stunning upset win over the Ravens, like it was nothing. He threw for 334 yards and 3 touchdowns, like it was nothing. And I like to see that. Somebody come in who was kind of down and out, who wasn't supposed to be a starter again in the NFL, and he comes in and shows that he does belong there. So I think it's definitely a big change for the team moving forward, and who knows what they can do after this.
Okay, now you liked him this week against the Chargers.
Yes. Yeah, I do like them this week. They're actually a home underdog. So they're getting 2 points. And I think coming off the big win against the Ravens, I'll take those 2 points as a home underdog. I guess some of the odds makers are considering it a fluke, but it's no fluke when you bring a new quarterback in like that and he puts that performance on with a team that was supposed to be a lot better than they were. These guys are just playing better for him. You can tell they respect him, and he's a great leader. Plus, Chargers are a team that have the 4th fewest passing yards in NFL and the 6th fewest yards per carry. So I don't think it's that big of a stretch for the Browns to win this game outright.
And by the way, now we talk about finding your edge and betting into a good spot.
Yeah.
Consider it like you hit a ball on the green. Well, you're trying to, first you go for the middle of the green if you're a player that's not on the PGA. If you get lucky, well, maybe you get a good bounce and you're closer to the cup. Betting into the middle of the green, like for the Cleveland Browns, as you look back at that Ravens game, and they won that game with attitude.
Yeah.
They moved the ball. It wasn't one big play except for the final score. They moved the ball with consistency for the entire second half of the game. So that's a team that now believes that they can move the ball, and that's an intangible in your benefit if you like the Cleveland Browns. Now, another pick you like, the team that they beat, you figure they're going to take it out on the Denver Broncos. The Baltimore Ravens, that last spread we saw was 9.5, and you still like them against the Broncos.
I do. The public is killing the Ravens right now. The public seems to be going for the Broncos, and I always say when the public goes zigs, I zag, and I fade the public and I'll give the 9 points in this game. Before their latest game, they looked unstoppable. Lamar Jackson looks like he's a rookie again running around. and Derrick Henry is just seemed just as fresh as he was 3 years ago. So I don't think the Ravens are slowing down at all, and I think they're gonna. I think they're mad, and I think they're gonna take it out on the Broncos this week.
All right. And so we've got those three Pete's picks. I'll take a shot with the Vikings. They've got to be pretty mad too. And they're taking on a Colts team that has been off injured at the quarterback position.
Yeah,
And I think the Vikings are due for a little bit of a get back game. So I'll take that. But they are the Pete's picks, and that'll be my intuitive selection too. And before we leave for this episode, Pete, I think it's just good to emphasize again that your edge is kind of what you give yourself with your own research.
yeah. Have fun with it. I mean, this is sports betting. Sports betting basically for me is the best part of it is kind of talking trash to your friends. Maybe you guys are fading each other, and just have fun with it. And if you have fun with it, and you kind of don't bet over your head, it's an enjoyable experience. And everybody has a different edge. It's not doesn't mean it's wrong. Doesn't mean it's right. If you're enjoying your time and hanging out with your friends and watching the games, and it makes it that much enjoyable, then it's a win-win.
There is nobody on earth who can tell you exactly who to bet. And you can go back from all of it, whether it's the freaky Commanders play, whether it is the Yankees falling apart in the fifth inning with their defense, three horrible plays,
Yes.
or somebody had a four-legged parlay with that Yankees and Dodgers game 5, 8-1 odds. All he needed was a hit from Ohtani, and then he reaches on catcher's interference. This guy was incensed. So there's always something that's going to hold you back. But whatever your story is, feel free to share it with the Sports Betting Bros. Take a look at that email on the screen because there's always a great story that you can share. And if we really like it, we will put it on Sports Betting Bros. Again, thanks for joining us. Hit like and subscribe to get future videos. Dave Bontempo and Pete Amato, and we will see you next time.